This is the Buchard P300. It's a step below their premium bookshelf speaker. At about $1,500 US, is it overpriced? I don't know. Let's find out together. Sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the Buchard P300s. Are watching this on October 9th, then you have probably one last day to sign up for the 200,000 subscriber giveaway. We're probably going over 200K today, but probably tomorrow. So the only thing that you have to do to be eligible to win a whole bunch of stuff, speakers, amps, turntables, DACs, streamers, is to fill out this Google form right here and follow me on Instagram at Cheap Audio Man. If you're already subscribed, if you don't have Instagram, don't worry about it. Just fill out the form. Winners will be drawn randomly. After I hit 200,000 subscribers, I will start contacting people by email, not through the comments, not anywhere else, by email, and let you know. So thank you so much for watching, and please like this video. The Buchard P300 comes in at $1,450 euros, not dollars, euros. Hold on. How much is 1,450 euros in dollars? Ooh, so they come in at $1,529 right now, 75 cents. However, at one time, there's a really good dollar to euro ratio, but right now, they're $1,500 a pair. That includes shipping, that includes taxes, that includes everything. So you're into these things for $1,530, which is a $300 premium above something like the ELAC Unify Reference. Little bit less than the Golden Ear BRX. That's a very good speaker. Also has passive radiators. The specs on these, this is a two-way speaker with a big passive radiator on the back. It's 5 by 8 inches on the back. Huge, thick surround. One 6-inch paper cone woofer, which they say is basically custom made. However, it's not. You can buy it and put it into your speaker. Actually, my good friend Neil Blanchard uses the same woofer in his very good, very high-end speakers. So, the takeaway is, it's a really good woofer. However, I think the marketing material is a little bit misleading when it says, this new custom-made paper cone woofer. Okay. Maybe it is custom-made. Frequency response, reported at 37. In room, which is very low for a bookshelf speaker, goes all the way up to 40,000 hertz, and they say it's plus or 3 dB, but in room. The tweeter is smaller. It's a 3/4 inch fine weave, soft fabric textile with CDC aluminum waveguide, and the waveguide is huge. It's really nice. We'll talk about that more with soundstage and imaging. Overall, this thing is built extremely well. Really good binding posts. Very nice finish. Comes in a variety of finishes. I think you can get it like 5 different, 5 colors. White, black. Looks like some type of British racing Jaguar green. Kind of a navy, and then orange. I got the black ones. Fun though, fun colors. 5-year warranty. Crossed over at 2,900 hertz. Pretty high. And I can tell that too. We'll talk about that more in mid-range. Let's talk about soundstage. For those of you who are new to hi-fi, soundstage and imaging is basically how wide and how high and where things are placed at when you're listening to your music. Is the lead singer in the front? Are things coming out of the side? Well, anyway, it's pretty easy with this speaker because they soundstage and image really excellently, if not like class leading. I don't even know what that means. This is a class leading. What's the class? Where's the cutoff? Is it based on price? Anyway, they soundstage and image really well. I haven't used this track for a long time, but Wherever I May Roam by Metallica, at the 14-second mark, there's a... Now, I have very consistent sidewalls in my living room where I did most of the evaluation of this speaker. That 14-second mark legit came 90 degrees to the right. It was amazing. Watching Spider-Man 2 with Jamie Foxx, it was great, man. There was stuff being thrown all over the place. Center imaging on all tracks was right in the middle. There is some very good forward to aft imaging too. The speaker can handle it. I had the Shelly Labs J2 with the Sparkos op amp upgrade, which really puts things in space really well. That's a DAC, digital to analog converter. Also had the Weem Pro going into that, then this going into the RMC1L from Emotiva, into the analog input, the RCA input running reference stereo, going out to the Emotiva XPA Gen 3. I have a multi-channel amplifier, 11 channels, but I had this running on 2 mono modules for the left and the right. Very good amplification. Tons of power. The speaker is 86 dB sensitive, which on paper sounds like it's very low. We'll get into more of that later in the final thoughts. It's not as bad as you think it is. Let's talk about bass. My oh my, there is a lot of bass on this speaker. It makes sense with the huge passive radiator. It makes sense too because I've heard the S400s, which is the more expensive, bigger brother. Ton of bass, ton of punch too. Usually I can have a speaker about, I don't know, 12 inches from the wall, from the rear of the speaker. And I did have it there because I've had these in the living room for about 3 weeks. But when I'm hardcore evaluation mode, I had to pull these out from the wall. A good 33 inches from the front baffle, which was about 22 inches from the back of the speaker, to get some of that bass to calm down a little bit, to reveal more of the mid-range clarity. That's how much bass there is on these speakers. So this is not a speaker you can slam against the wall if you want the utmost in high fidelity. For movies and stuff, it's actually great, because you don't need a subwoofer if you put these about 10 inches from the wall, from the back of the speaker. Tons of bass, TV, movies, no subwoofer needed. Music, you're gonna have to pull them out a bit. Intergalactic, I basically just tested Intergalactic when I had these close to the wall, and it was boom, boom, it was nuts. Cleaning it up though by bringing it out into the room, the extension was still there, but the really in-your-face punch was a little bit lacking, so you can kind of control how much bass you're getting out of these, how close you put them to the wall, and that's somewhat true of any speaker really. But Intergalactic was great, up against the wall and pulled out. There was also something I picked up on Intergalactic, and that was some crazy soundstage and imaging. At the 24-second mark, there were some like pops coming out of the right speaker, and I thought something was going on in my room because I'd never heard it thrown that far. Excellent. Soundstage and imaging is excellent. All right, Got Me Wrong, Alice in Chains, MTV Unplugged. The first 30 seconds, the bass line is so prominent that it does cover up a little bit of the lower mid-range, I don't know, vocal area. Lane Staley's vocals were a little bit covered up. So anything in basically the upper bass and the lower mids, if there's too much going on in the bass, it's gonna cover up a little bit of that lower mid-range. Otherwise, this speaker is like a pugilist. I mean, it's just gonna knock you off your feet with the amount of bass. Let's talk about mid-range. We already talked a little bit about it in the bass, but Got Me Wrong, a little bit of veiling of his vocals, but that bass line is really, really, really prominent. So you're not gonna have an issue with lower mid-range clarity on most tracks. On some tracks, you do. Like Give Me One Reason by Tracy Chapman. Now, she has a lower voice. The whole beginning of that song was great until the drums and the bass line came in, and then you went from extremely vibrato, a lot of ambiance in her vocals to it being slightly covered up again because of the bass line and the drums. That was a really good track to hear just how powerful the bass is and how much it can affect the mid-range. Now, I'm kind of concentrating on this because this is one, if not the only faults of this speaker. Like, this is the only thing I can pick apart on this speaker. We'll talk more about that in the final thoughts, but mid-range is pretty solid. There is a definite handoff at that crossover point. Shoot to Thrill, the guitars came in from the right speaker crunchy, clean, if not a little bit cool. So the upper mid-range is slightly cool. As you go down over that crossover point, it starts to get a lot more robust, caramelly even. Redemption Song was a revelation, near perfect, if not perfect, because the acoustic guitars a little bit higher in the mid-range. His vocals higher in the mid-range, so there's a ton of detail, a ton of ethereal vibrato going on. Spectacular. I got Mrs. Cheap Audio Man to sit down too with Give Me One Reason. She loved it. I'm like, do you hear that the bass is covering up the mid? She's like, no, it just sounds great. It sounds spectacular. Anyway, Redemption Song was a revelation. Let's talk about treble. With this much bass, you might think there may be a little trouble in the treble region. However, there is not. The treble is actually wonderful, tonally accurate, a little bit rolled off. Sinnerman, haven't listened to this one for a while. The hi-hat was, the timbre was perfect. Perfect. Very believable presentation. View to a Kill by Duran Duran. Terrible recording. The cymbals on some other speakers that have a bump in the treble can just be really bad. I mean, it sounds like static from other speakers. Didn't sound like static on the Buchard P300s, but the recording's so terrible. I mean, you can go listen to that song. The recording's so terrible though, but the Buchards actually handled it probably better than most speakers. Most speakers I listen to have a little bit of a tilt on the top end, so that song's terrible for them, but on the Buchards, it's very good. Harvester of Sorrow, cymbal crescendo was less in your face, about, what is that, the 16, 17 second mark? And at 56 seconds, there's a offbeat cymbal with nothing else going on in the song. It was there, it was clean, it was clear, it was believable, tonally accurate. Just step back a little bit. This, I don't believe, is tilted on the top end, but what top end is there, what you can hear, is very tonally accurate, very pleasing, and not sibilant at all. Well done on the treble. What are my final thoughts? Final thoughts. Not trying to beat a dead horse here, but sometimes there's so much bass depending upon where you have these placed in the room and depending upon the track that it may cover up some mid-range clarity. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. Give Me One Reason, perfection until the bass line came in. Still exceptional. There was a little cover up though. I say this speaker easy 8 or 9 out of 10. I personally think it's better than the S400 Mark II. I think it's got a better top end. I think it's got better mid-range, and I think it's less warm. I prefer this one over its more expensive bigger brother. I also like this more than the ELAC Unify Reference. What was interesting is I prefer the ELAC Unify Reference over the S400 Mark II because I thought the ELAC had a little bit more top end, a little bit more extension. The P300 has even more. So I think this easily beats, in my opinion only, may not be your opinion, to me would be an easy choice over the ELAC Unify Reference, $1,200 speaker. Partnering equipment. This speaker, even though it's 86 dB, there's so much bass here, and usually that's what lower powered, thinner equipment struggles with, is bass. You already have a ton of bass from this speaker. So even though it's 86 dB, you're still going to be able to run this thing on lower power amplifiers or some of these very small Class D amplifiers like this Fozzy Audio V3. Now, you're putting a $1,500 speaker on an $80 amplifier. Crazy, right? Well, maybe not so much. I have a patron who runs some Von Schwagert speakers that are thousands upon thousands of dollars off of Fozzy Audio V3. He loved it. He said it was great. One of the things about that amplifier is a little bit thin on the bottom, but when you have a thick speaker, you can kind of mitigate the overblown bass if you're close to a wall by having a thinner sounding amplifier. The Rotel A11 Mark II was also a great pairing. I wouldn't call the Rotel thin, but I would call it extremely clean and clear. It had no problem, and it also has tone controls, which leads me to another thing. I was listening to this through the Weem Pro, which does have an equalizer. So you can play around with 300 hertz or so and bring that down, clean that mid-range up, bring down that upper bass a little bit so that you don't have to worry about any type of mid-range cover-up. The Emotiva with no tone controls was a little bit too powerful on the bottom end. Too much bass with these on certain tracks when the speaker was placed close to the wall. The good thing about this speaker, it's going to play well with all different types of amplification. Easy for me to say. Even lower powered amplification because it's so powerful on the bottom end. It's a very versatile speaker, interestingly enough. Even though it's 86 dB, you would think this would be like hard to drive. And I guess in essence it is, but by not getting the most out of the bass on your amplification, you're actually balancing this thing out a little bit on certain tracks depending upon where you have it placed. It's really kind of cool. And this is the first time I've ever really had this experience, because normally the rule of thumb is lower efficiency, you need more power. This can probably be run off of a tube amp, actually. It's really interesting. I didn't try it because I think tube amps are dumb. Just kidding, for me, personally. If you love tube amps, it's fine. I'm not calling you dumb. I'm just calling tube amps dumb. Anyway, no, tube amps are fine. This makes me excited to hear their even more affordable speaker, because personally, I think Buchard is getting better as they get cheaper. So, fantastic speaker. 8 or 9 out of 10. So, if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon. Patreon.com/CheapAudioMan. Every Sunday night, we have Patreon-only Zooms, Patreon-only Discord, Patreon-only Facebook group. You can also use the links in the description. Those are affiliate links. However, the Buchard is not an affiliate link. I do not have an affiliate relationship with them, and they did not pay me for this video. You can also use the thanks button down at the bottom of the video. Buy me a cup of coffee, but don't feel compelled to buy me anything. You can also sign up for Amazon Music, Tidal, or Roon. Links in the description. Click sign up. You get a free trial of some length. You get a couple of bucks, even if you quit. Actually, I think you get a 4-month trial right now for Amazon Music. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Maybe get yourself a pair of P300s from Buchard and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.